Hey guys, so welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney 2. Let's carry on where we left off. We're out here on Briar Road investigating William Shamspeare's, well, sham death of sorts. Guys, the living dead, for goodness sake. He rose up from the dining table after he was apparently poisoned by soap. Of course, we debunked that straight away, thanks Turlock Shobes. But now we're out here and we see someone spying through a bricked up window. And, well, that's obviously suspicious because he can't really see anything through a bunch of bricks. It looks like he's trying to see to Soseki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? What do you think? Excuse me, could we have a word? Holy shit. Oh! Yes, come on over. Oh, never mind. He just ran off. I feel sure that I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? I do too. But I don't remember. Maybe it was in the previous game. Well, in the meantime, this is a familiar road to us, of course. We resolved Miss Green's situation where she got stabbed in the back. A knife came flying out right up there, I believe, during a domestic dispute. There always seems to be a bicycle outside the Garadeb residence. I've read that bicycles are extremely popular all over Great Britain at the moment, in fact. Really? In this cold? That one seems very, warped, though. Especially the front wheel. Is that to make it more of a challenge to ride, do you think? No, I'm afraid that may be a result of the rider's incompetence. For the front wheel to be so badly warped, I'm afraid the rider may have been similarly afflicted. Then there's a good chance Mr. Natsume has been practicing on this bicycle, I think. His face is really warped, too. Oh dear, I fear you may be right. Oh goodness. Well, I don't think there's anything here pertaining to our investigation right now, maybe later on. We did catch a glimpse of that yellow man, however, so I'm sure he'll come into play sooner or later. For now, though, I think we, bail. We've got plenty of places to go. We've got the Garadeb's room, where we need to speak with Mr. Garadeb. And we got the prison, where Mr. Natsume has been transported. Let's start with the Garadeb's room, since we're right outside his lodgings. And find out more about what's going on in this particular building. Hopefully he's cooperative, given what we did to his wife. We put her away, that is. We didn't do anything dodgy. 21st February, the Garadeb's room. Here we are again, the eccentric landlord's eccentric top-floor abode. We're here because Mr. Garadeb's the one who discovered the incident this morning, don't forget. Hello. Ah, you chaps, eh? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It was quite a trial. As much for Mr. Garadeb as anyone, really. Came straight back here after all that business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Garadeb. Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that dead loss of an actor chap in the ground floor room. Yeah, about that. He's not quite dead. For better or worse. Those were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't they? This guy eavesdropping on us. Man, I forgot how narrow your head is, Mr. Crescent Moon. Let's converse. Actually, no. We gotta do the traditional present the armband. Mr. Garadeb, could I show you this? Been quite a couple of days, as you can imagine. I'm afraid I'm rather tired of seeing that damn armband. I saw it all day yesterday at the courthouse, and plenty of times before then. Haven't really got the energy in the old eyeballs, to be honest with you. Some other time then. Okay, back to it. Let's not present the soap just yet. This morning's incident. It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what had happened. Well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answer. And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door? Well, I called on that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? The man could just overslept by half an hour. He kinda did, if you think about it.
That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning.
Please don't, Susato, take down the door. I need it. For my privacy. Well, you know, better be safe than sorry and all that. Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? His lips are quivering too.
Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of the door.
Mr. Shamspeare, what about him? Who is he? Give us his life story. Because I'm sure he would if he had the chance. The victim's name is Mr. Shamspeare, I believe. Is that right? Yes, William Shamspeare. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now.
And how would you describe him?
In a word, destitute.
Destitute?
Well, let's face it, the only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bally screw loose. So hard to choose which category Saseki-san would fall into. Maybe both.
Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude.
What? I was thinking it privately, thank you. I was doing research as well.
Research? Into what?
Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare! His fucking name's Shamspeare. Of course he's bloody researching Shakespeare. Probably related to the man, somehow. Maybe lost in translation his surname. Read a few plays of the old bard myself, you know. Romeo and Hamlet and all that. You know.
Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author.
I like how we've got William Shakespeare, but we've also got Sherlock Holmes. I thought they'd have a bit of a play on words with William Shakespeare here. I thought that was the case with William Shamspeare, but no. Shakespeare does indeed exist.
He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. It seems incredible
that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there?
Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamspeare would have had much in common.
Then again, Sherlock Holmes is a fictional character and William Shakespeare does exist, so I guess that's why there's a distinction there. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder! Let's hope it's not that.
Mr. Naruhodo! Really? How rude!
I'm thinking this privately, Susato. How are you beaming into my skull? Alright, yesterday's events. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning? Well, no. Must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out at the time. Mr. Garrett had noticed there was no light from his room or something, I suppose. Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here, contemplating my life choices. It was after 8 before Shamspeare got back. The chap was up till past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Well, no freaking wonder he didn't wake up at 5 in the morning and he overslept. Suppose he met his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Like your fireplace back there. Is everything alright, Mr. Susato?
Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garadab, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly?
Not a big fan of stairs, not with this blasted leg.
Then, how is it that you seem to know? The precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor, I mean.
Hey, That's a very good point. Can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? I mean, yes. I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a bully outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants, why would I? Why not? You're a landlord. An overbearing one, I might add, I'm sure.
Then how did you know, Mr. Garadab?
It's the gas, woman. The gas tells me everything.
The gas?
Speaking gas? What? What on earth do you mean, sir? How could the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? It doesn't speak. It's a clear mist. But as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes. Yes, I more or less worked that out, but I can't work out this gas thing.
Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside. And the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main.
Yes, I understand that too. I'm not completely stupid, okay, guys? I'm just wondering how the gas talks. Let me see if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously, the room would get brighter. You're not very bright, are you? Exactly, but at the same time, the lights in all the other rooms of the house would dim for a moment. What? They're dim. Why?
Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual. And that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't it?
Yes, of course, because everything's connected to a single supply pipe. I figured it out, guys. I'm smart.
Is that supposed to happen, though? Sounds rather undesirable.
Yeah, like freaking someone stealing all the hot water when you're trying to shower. Jolly good point. Fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless. Long worn out. And barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here and they glow brighter than the rest of the house. Ah, right, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. You've got it. The speaking gas.
Oh, of course, because when people come back home in the evening and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps and fires.
Clever. In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house.
Gosh! That's fascinating, Mr. Garadeb. Absolutely fascinating.
Oh well, nothing to it really. You know, it's just a humble abode, really. I can't really see that it's going to help us with the case either. Oh, sorry, that's me. I can't really see that it's going to help us with the case either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Garadeb is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. Again, nosy landlord, man. Of course he wants to know what's going on. It's his property. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. Well, we've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we ought to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again.
Good idea.
Mind if I, examine your lodgings first, sir? Might as well take a look around. Everything's here, same as last time. There's the, part of the room where the fire started, and that's started the series of unfortunate events that took place. Let's start with this. We know what that screen is hiding now. The aftermath of the fiery altercation the other day. Don't suppose I'll be able to clear that mess up for some time now. My maid's gone.
Oh dear, this must be a very difficult situation for you.
I'll say. People talk about twists of fate and whatnot. But this is a twist and a half, a rotten show all around. He's clearly struggling with everything that's happened. Poor guy. Up here, we got his medal. Good to see Mr. Garadeb's Medal of Honor still proudly displayed on the wall.
The inscription reads, "For distinguished participation," if you remember.
It's a glorified participation medal? Yes, I remember. Because I remember thinking even I might stand a chance of picking up honors like that. Wouldn't know to look at me now, perhaps, but I had my devil-may-care days, you know. Devil-may-care? What did you get up to? Stuff. Clandestine operations and all. Well, all in the past now, of course. Best left there. Best not? I want to know now. I'm nosy too. Ah, yes, those enormous mortar shells. It's quite something seeing them up close, isn't it? Right above a fireplace, no less.
Didn't you say something about firing them into the barracks, Mr. Garadeb?
You remember, do you? Just a little mishap that occurred during training one day. What are you doing firing on your own men? The captain bellowed at me. I'm not surprised. A little mishap doesn't really do it justice, does it? Well, it's just I almost killed some people. Big deal. One has these little incidents when one's a hot-headed young private. Perhaps I should put some evidence that resulted from one of my little mishaps on display.
Oh, does the great lawyer, like the great detective, want to exhibit some trophies of his finest moments?
Yeah, why not? Love trophies, man. I love mementos and just things that are significant in terms of my memories, cherishing that. I'm a sentimental guy, okay?
That's your military uniform, isn't it, Mr. Garadab?
No, it's my laundry. Well, ceremonial garb, yes. Been hanging on the wall ever since my retirement bash. Not in active service now, you know. Doesn't mean much to me anymore. You could have the old thing if you wanted it.
Oh, really? Well, it might suit Lord Van Zeeks, perhaps. An overly ostentatious outfit like this could be just what he needs.
Very tactful, Miss Susato. Very tactful indeed. God, I can't wait to reunite with Van Zeeks. I love that guy so much. I think he's my favorite prosecutor of the series. No shit. Like, he's great. I love his design, his intimidation factor, his name. He's the Reaper of the Bailey, for goodness sake. Imagine being called the Reaper of the Bailey. There's a single apron drawing on that enormous cannon-shaped clothes horse. Look.
No, Mr. Naruhodo, that's a real cannon.
I knew that. I was just testing you. I'm smart, okay? We've established this. Piece of history, that is. Seen plenty of action on the battlefield, I can tell you. Now the old girl and I are just enjoying the peace and quiet of retirement together. How'd you get it up the stairs? And, of course, should come in handy if the enemy decided to launch an attack again. Is there a war going on that I don't know about?
Oh, a copy of Rent's magazine. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes is being read all over London. Isn't it wonderful?
Naturally, one asks oneself if such a singular detective could really exist. Well, this singular detective really needs my help a lot of the time. But having met the chap, it's undeniable. He is most certainly singular. Singularly dangerous. That's genuine public opinion for you, Mr. Susato. Perhaps it should be reflected in the stories.
You're just jealous. Make no mistake, Mr. Naruhodo, I intend to snuff out the sort of public opinion we just heard personally.
Whoa, God, Mr. Garrett, be careful, she might toss you into the fireplace. I'm starting to see where Mr. Shubs' untainted reputation comes from now. All this simping. You look very dashing in your uniform there, Mr. Garrett. Ah, that old portrait, eh? Drawn by an art student who used to rent the room downstairs.
Oh, you look so wonderfully young and courageous and strong. What happened? What happened to you, Mr. Garadab?
Yes, well, the chap presented it to me one day and asked if I'd let him off the month's rent in return. Oh, I see. So, you did, presumably. I bolly well did not, but I did keep the painting, though.
Oh.
Portrait is a portrait, but rent is rent, eh? And yet it's still there proudly on the wall. God, I expected nothing less. These shelves look like they've been completely torn apart by a wild beast. Reminds me of the Battle of Maiwan, don't you know? The experiences of a seasoned veteran. And yet he was no match for his own wife. Enemy had us surrounded on all sides. We really thought we were done for, the whole Bolly company. We were taking a real pounding from that cannon, so... Oh god, that sounds freaking dirty. So all we could do was run for our lives. Oh. I thought that story was going in a different direction, actually. Ryunosuke, come on! This is a family game. Well, the whole experience taught me one thing, I can tell you. When you're done for, you're really done for. Ugh. It's not what a lawyer who often finds himself under fire wants to hear. Thankfully, I managed to scurry out of trouble more often than not. That's an impressive collection of cakes on that fancy silver cake stand there.
I feel sure that it was full of cakes when we first investigated in here as well.
Yes, quite right. Haven't touched it since. Haven't done much at all, really, since it all happened. Time's rather stood still for me, you know.
Oh.
Time has stood still? Well, that's an interesting phrase. I might be able to use that excuse when I'm next supposed to be tidying the office.
You could just tidy up, Mr. Naruhodo.
It's clear now that I'm thinking out loud, unless Susato and I just gel this well together. There's a good view over the wintry East End from up here. It's an oppressively grey scene. There's really nothing comparable in Japan. And down below, Briar Road, partly blanketed in snow. And the pavement when poor Miss Green was struck in the back by that knife. Thinking about it, this is the only room in this building that actually has a window to the outside world. Sometimes, Great Britain really does seem like a strange land, doesn't it?
I suppose all foreign cultures seem strange at first. Imagine how an Englishman would feel on arriving in Japan and seeing people with a chômage top knot.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, we have a few English people in Japan, right? Committing murder and whatnot, it seems. Okay, I think we're done. We can go to the prison now. Is there anything else? We're not permitted into Mr. Shamspeare's room because Scotland Yard's investigating. We could go back to see Miss Green, but she's resting. Go back to Sholmes' suite and my office. But, no, let's go to the prison cell where Mr. Ryunosuke Natsume is being held. Might as well start packing his bags and moving in at this point. 21st February. Local prison. Cell 9.
Look, Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now?
Locum student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire!
Oh, yes?
What is he? Tell me! Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me?
Let me guess. You're talking about Mr. Sholmes?
He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost.
But his diabolical deductions! They're not of this world, they've left me. Ah, cursed! I'm cursed, I tell you!
Well, that sort of hurts.
Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction too.
Yes, I'm also responsible for getting him out of freaking trouble yesterday. So let's not forget that. We have some wonderful news, by the way.
Oh? The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again.
Was that the okay sign? Now, in the absolutely worst case, you can only be tried for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? That's fantastic.
It's terrible! Oh. I'm stuck in the cell, suffering for some silly, wrong end of the stick. You did it, didn't you? Confess, you're a killer. Why the moustache? Constant questions.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Ah, that selfish sister. Make up your mind. Are you dead or alive? If you were going to come back to life, why bother dying? Wickedly wishy-washy William.
Well, it seems likely that Mr. Shamspeare was never actually dead in the first place. He didn't decide to die then come back.
Ah, yes, that might make sense. I'm pleased he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. It'd be sad to think it was our last.
Oh.
Oops. Oopsie doodle.
Mr. Natsume, does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met with Mr. Shamspeare, didn't you?
What? No. I'm not saying another word without my lawyer. Yeah, I demand to have a lawyer present.
Who do you think I am? Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story. Look at my armband. I'm a lawyer.
Oh, why am I cursed like this?
I don't know, man. Let's find out. First off, let me remind you that I am a lawyer. Here's my armband. Have I shown you this before, Mr. Natsume?
Oh, yes, the sweet, sweet aroma of our beloved homeland.
It shows that the wearer is a defense lawyer. It means nothing in Great Britain, of course, but I still wear it, and I show it to anyone who cares.
Oh, I know exactly how you feel, locum student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. My Haramaki belly band. I don't feel right without it.
Your Haramaki belly band?
It's perfect for the cold English winters. Just the thing to keep my tummy warm.
Yes, I see the link. Almost. They're round and from Japan. Okay. Speak. What happened? Can you tell us exactly what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume?
There's nothing to tell. But, Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me with that accursed case yesterday.
The case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back.
It's hard to believe that was only yesterday.
After the trial was over, I trudged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings. And that evening at 9:30, it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamspeare.
So, you did go to the victim's room then?
As we feared.
I didn't do anything wrong! I'd never been to his room before. It was the first time!
Then, what made you decide to go?
I'd bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting, and it developed into a discussion. But he had to go out, so I bade him farewell.
That ties in with what Mr. Garrett said, that the victim went out and came back after 8.
We met again later that evening at around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea that I'd brewed as a gift.
So it was you who brought the tea that had clearly been drunk at the scene then?
And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you?
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet, who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate.
I'm sure. I thought it was Romeo and Hamlet.
Such a stimulating subject, Shakespeare.
And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shamspeare's tea?
No, never, not at all. Team Juliet won, that was me. And when I left his room, the flamboyant fellow was fighting fit. Yes, I swear it categorically.
Well, I believe him. Of course, I mean, he got back to Japan safely. I am curious how the hell this case is so important that this is the one that got Susato recalled back to Japan, you know? Like, how is this going to play out in court, I wonder? We don't even have a dead body. Cursed existence. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence.
I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now, and in that time I've learned that it's no place for me.
It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture.
It certainly can be. I can only imagine how harder it was back in the olden days, right? You had no internet, no easy way to communicate back with your homeland. You know, nowadays you can just pop an email, even WhatsApp your family back home, but here, you gotta wait ages for a letter to come back and forth. People have no real clue as to how other cultures exist and thrive because there's no, like, knowledge of how other people live in other countries. So you're in the deep end, man.
There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me. They all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room.
I feel that, man. I feel so bad for Saseki. Like, when he says it like that, like, he must be so paranoid. Think he's judged every time. Oh, people ogling him just because he looks different.
Which is why I've become a recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember. And then 1 week ago, I moved into Briar Road.
But why? I mean, why did you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable.
Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money, it spoke to me.
The rent?
Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed.
Cursed? Cursed how?
The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there.
Oh no!
He was only a young man, but one morning he was found dead and no one could explain why.
Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that, unless it's dirt cheap, which is probably what happened.
I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books, and books cost money. A horrible history is a small price to pay. When I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning.
Brave or blinkered?
But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I realized how horrible that room's history really was.
Gosh, was it really so awful?
Well, silver lining, you got plenty of time to read books in prison, although I don't know if they supplied books back then. Horrible History. Love that series, by the way, Horrible Histories. I used to read it so much as a teenager. Learned a lot about history.
How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened?
At first, it was just a feeling. The feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me.
Do you think that might just have been your mind playing tricks on you?
No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to the place.
A nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean?
All the souls who've died in that room lean over me in my sleep and try to strangle me.
That really is horrible.
And... oh, now I come to think of it, it happened again last night too. The very same night that Mr. Shamspeare was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room.
You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible.
Yes, you're right, I know it. And that's why I'm sitting in this cell now. It's safer here. I'm already searching for the next room with a history to call home.
I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Build a new place. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history.
Phew, Susato-san knows how to make the man listen. Okay. I wonder if there's any significance to those souls strangling him.
Of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse on my room as well.
You mean Mr. Garrett?
Yes, he knows that if people keep dying there, they'll never be able to rent it out again.
Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place. You have to find someone gullible.
Ah, perhaps. That may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps and his tenants' movements.
Yeah, well, he's looking for signs of paranormal activity. You mean because he's worried about their well-being? He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his lit rooms. He's monitoring their vital signs.
What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps?
Oh dear, no, it's nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please forget I said anything.
Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well.
What's important is that Mr. Shamspeare isn't in fact dead at all, okay? Once he's come around and he's able to tell us what happened, we'll be able to get you released.
Yes, please. Oh, I do hope you're right.
Excuse me. Of course, it's Gregoson. Inspector Gregson. Put up over here in what you just said. And on that note, it's time for your interrogation. I have some good news and some bad news.
Oh.
Which do you want first? Bad news, of course.
Always, every time the bad news always comes first. When hope is all you have, hold on to it. That's my guiding principle.
Right, well, in that case, the good news it is. Usually I can't tell the bad news unless I give you the context with the good news.
Huh?
Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way. Exactly. So just start with the damn good news and bad news. You know, don't give us a choice.
Then why did you ask me my preference?
As you might have heard, the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, was just unconscious. He's come around now. Yes, we saw it happen in all its terrifying glory. Right, he's still being treated by the doctors, but we managed to get a written statement from him already.
Oh, isn't that wonderful, Mr. Natsume?
Bad news? It's fingering you as the criminal.
Oh, thank goodness. It's all over then. I can leave this somber cell.
Sorry, no, that's not on the cards.
What?
Why have I not, Mr. Inspector?
Mr. Shamspeare has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night.
Implicated someone? Oh dear.
You don't mean...
I'm sorry to say I do, yes. He's pointing the finger at you, Mr. Natsume.
Ah!
Why? Why him?
By sweet poison did he seeketh to end my life. That wickedness kiteth, Soseki Natsume. His own words.
No!
So I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. You'll be wanting to make the necessary preparations.
No!
Oh god! Someone please, give this man a break. And so, once again, Soseki-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court, and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him. Well, thankfully we know that we will break his curse, right? To be continued. Oh, what a tease. Looks like we're going straight to court. I love it.